That's not right.
Let's try.
Fox Sports Trending now.
National championship game is all set next Monday night. In Atlanta, it will be the Alabama Crimson Tide taking on the Georgia Bulldogs. Alabama dominated top-ranked Clemson 24-6 in the Sugar Bowl.
I'm happy as hell.
Thank you, Coach Saban. Georgia won the Rose Bowl in a shootout over Oklahoma.
Nauta goes in motion left. Snap it to Michelle. He's running to the left. Angling. 25-20. Got a block for Brown. 50, 10, 5. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Dogs win it. We're headed to Atlanta.
27-yard game-winning run by Sonny Michel of the Bulldogs. Georgia won the Rose Bowl in a shootout over Oklahoma in double overtime, 54-48. The first overtime game in Rose Bowl history. Also the highest scoring contest ever. Meanwhile, tonight in NBA action, Isaiah Thomas will make his Cavaliers debut as he recovers from his hip injury. I'm Deb Carson.
This is Michael David from Seattle.
All right, 4.5 minutes.
All right, bud. Thanks.
I started taking Andro 400 to increase my testosterone. Since then, I've lost 35 pounds of fat, and my waist went from size 38 to size 32. I have more energy, and I look and feel 20 years younger. And now my wife tells me I have to take Andro 400.
Hi, this is Ron Johnson from Utah. After 10 weeks of taking Andro 400, I lost 13 pounds and my waist went from 36 to 33. That was 8 years ago. I continue to take Andro 400 and I've maintained my weight at 172. Gained muscle and energy. I'm 63 now and feel better than I have in 30 years.
Andro 400, the natural way to increase testosterone, lose belly fat, gain energy, and feel great. Try Andro 400, the safe, effective, affordable way to boost your testosterone. Go to andro400.com or call 888-400-0435. 888-400-0435. Whether you're making updates to existing properties or building new construction, Lowe's has savings for pros during our Ready to Refresh event. Save up to $40 on American Standard toilets and save $10 on a Delta Brush Nickel 2-handle bath faucet, now just $39. Save yourself some time by ordering online at lowesforpros.com and pick it up at our Pro Desk. Faucet offer valid through 1/28/18. Toilet offer valid through 3/18/18. See store for details.
As a small business owner, you make every dollar count. So what could you do with $10? Go to Vistaprint.com today and you'll get 500 high-quality custom business cards for only $9.99. That's less than 2 cents per card. And at Vistaprint, your satisfaction is absolutely guaranteed. So it's never been easier to turn 500 strangers into connections. Just visit Vistaprint.com and use promo code 3030 at checkout. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code 3030.
Whether you're making updates to existing properties or building new construction, Lowe's has savings for pros during our Ready to Refresh event. Save up to $40 on American Standard toilets and save $10 on a Delta Brush Nickel 2-handle bath faucet, now just $39. Save yourself some time by ordering online at lowesforpros.com and pick it up at our Pro Desk. Faucet offer valid through 1/28/18. Toilet offer valid through 3/18/18. See store for details.
With the start of the new year, it might just be time to ask your boss for a raise. AP Herald explains.
Savvy New Year's resolutions will include making more money, and not only to indulge in luxuries. A consumer price index report says the cost of groceries will increase up to 2%, eating out will spike 3%, airfare will climb 3.5%, and hotel rates will go up by nearly 4%. AP Herald, NBC News Radio.
The surge in retail bankruptcy filings last year has some experts saying some of your gift cards could become worthless. According to credit research firm Moody's, consumers should be aware of possible store closures from Sears, J.Crew, Claire's, Neiman Marcus, GNC, and Nine West. However, the good news is most retailers will ask judges to honor gift card transactions during their Chapter 11 filings, which judges usually...
All right, 1 minute.
As the population ages, it's getting more and more expensive to take care of our loved ones. Michigan's Merrill Lynch financial advisor, Missy Spickler, says it's important to make plans. Those plans, she says, should include employers making accommodations.
When it's their top-notch person having to care for their loved one, sometimes they're not so understanding, and I think they need to have some type of program or something to facilitate that.
She says when people have to take care of elderly loved ones, that will take its toll on the workplace. She says we are shifting from employers needing to think about maternity and paternity leave to employers needing to start thinking about caregiver leave. It looks like the president has resolved to continue moving things forward in positive financial fashion, and he says he expects 2018 to be a very good year for the country. Trump said 2018 will be a tremendous year that will see more stock market gains and more businesses returning to the United States. Trump also said the recently passed tax bill will help to make 2018 great. Consumer and business news, Elisa Z.
Here we go.
News Radio.
Let's do it. Welcome back. Duncan Holder back on the air January 2nd, the second day of 2018. A new year is upon us. And the first without Larry Holder, my colleague, cohort in crime. Had a little bit of a family emergency today. So we've got Josh Katzenstein, my colleague here at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, pinch hitting for Larry. Larry's fine. I know what you're thinking. Everybody's thinking that he freaked out.
Big chicken.
And has now left the country because he's scared to get his head shaved. But that is not the case. Larry had a little bit of issue with his house because of the cold weather, and he is handling that. He'll be back in the saddle tomorrow, and we will also be back in the saddle today as we review the New Orleans Saints' final regular season game. A disappointing loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. In addition to the Saints-Bucks game, we got a playoff preview to talk about the Carolina Panthers. Want to review the Sugar Bowl last night. Josh, I got out of the dome at like 2 a.m. Very late game, but a dominant performance by the Alabama Crimson Tide. We have an all-SEC final now for the national championship. And we also want to talk about LSU, a disappointing loss for them in the bowl game in the Citrus Bowl against Notre Dame. But first of all, I want to get your thoughts real quick because we haven't had a chance to talk since we both flew out of here quickly on Sunday night. Your thoughts on the Saints game. Obviously disappointing, but it was kind of a conflicted locker room. They won the NFC South Division, yet they lost the game, and I don't think people really knew how to react in the locker room.
Yeah, it was weird. Everyone in the locker room, there was a cigar in each player's locker, and several of the players were wearing, NFC South champion T-shirts and hats, but the looks on their faces didn't look like one of celebration. I mean, they were, pretty upset that they lost that game. They expected to win. They talked all week about, going into the playoffs, on a high note by winning the NFC South as opposed to backing in to the division title, by needing the Panthers to win, which happened, and they're glad to accomplish that goal. But certainly anytime you lose a game the way they did by giving up a 95-yard drive in the final 2 minutes to a quarterback that had really been struggling for most of the game, that certainly, left a sour taste in a lot of their mouths.
Yeah, you could sense it in the locker room afterwards, and a lot of conflicted emotions coming out of that locker room. We want to hear what your emotions are, what your thoughts are as the Saints go into the wild card weekend. They host the Carolina Panthers Sunday at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. We want to get your thoughts on their prospects in that game and also what you thought about the game on Sunday since we didn't have a chance to visit with you yesterday. So if you want to call in, the caller line is 260-1280. We'll take your calls all day. Hey, we got a wide open show today. As usual, after a Saints game, we leave it wide open. We want you to participate, join in, and give us your thoughts. And if you're a little disappointed, it's understandable. But as Sean Payton said afterwards, it doesn't matter now. I mean, even those two games against the Carolina Panthers early this year, the Saints have to kind of erase those from their memory banks and just kind of start anew because it is a new season and it's single elimination now. It's sudden death for everybody involved. And I think you can really look at this Saints team and feel like they could beat anybody in the playoffs, and they probably could lose to anybody. I think the NFC is that wide open. I don't think there is a noted favorite by any means. I think the Vikings probably right now look like the favored team just because they're playing at home and they have their quarterback, Case Keenum, intact, whereas Nick Foles has really struggled for the Eagles. There's a lot of debate about that. What's the easier path? I don't think anybody really knows because I think this thing's going to be wide open this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know a lot of people look at Nick Foles and they think, well, it's Nick Foles. I mean, any team could beat them, and Nick Foles has struggled the last couple games of the year. He didn't even play the whole game, on Sunday in Week 17, but the Philly had already locked up the 1 seed, and he played in the most important game against the Rams when he filled in and replaced Carson Wentz, and he played well in that game to lead them to victory at the end of the game. So I don't think you can necessarily judge, Nick Foles or the Eagles on, what's happened the last couple weeks. And the other thing, I mean, that's the only scenario where it would be a cold weather game. I mean, Minnesota plays inside, LA, the 3 seed, beautiful, I'm sure, all year as long as there's not a fire. And so I think, the Saints haven't – when's the last time the Saints played in a cold weather game? I guess Buffalo was chilly.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't really count.
Well, I mean, they went up to Philly a few years ago. Everybody's talked about that. But that was a completely different Saints team and a completely different Eagles team.
Right.
I think this is a much more complete Eagles team. And I think that narrative that's playing out now that the Eagles are vulnerable, I think they're going to have heard that for 2 or 3 weeks, and they're going to use that as motivational fuel. It reminds me a little bit of what we saw in the Superdome last night, where Alabama Crimson Tide had about a month to listen to how they probably didn't belong in the college football playoff, and Nick Saban and his staff used that as motivational fuel for their team, and they just thoroughly dominated the top-ranked team in the country. I mean, it wasn't even a game from the very outset.
Yeah, I was considering going as a spectator. Decided against that. Figured it'd be better to watch at home and make sure I caught the end of the Rose Bowl. And great decision by me because the Rose Bowl was phenomenal and the Sugar Bowl was brutal. I mean, I didn't have to be there till 2 a.m. like you. I could just turn it off at the start of the fourth quarter, knowing I wasn't going to miss anything. And so that's exactly what I did. But real quick on the Saints, for anyone out there that is so worried about the way this, they lost to the Bucs and what sort of implications that might have on how they play the Panthers. I think it's really important to remember that in that game, they didn't have Teron Armstead or Michael Homanui. Excuse me for pronouncing that wrong. Man, if you're listening, I apologize, but I'm quite sure that he isn't.
JJ, Dallas.
And with those guys back, presumably for this playoff game, their run game should be much better. You look at what they did on Sunday against the Bucs. 26 carries, 92 yards for 3.5 yards per carry. Compare that to what they've done for the rest of the season. They typically average 129 yards and 4.7 yards per carry. Getting those 2 blockers back is going to be huge, assuming, that they make it back in time for this Panthers game.
Yeah, I think Teron Armstead is one of the 5 most important players on the roster. And he's expected to be back, but you just don't know how long he's going to last because he keeps coming and going on the roster. So we want to get your thoughts. Remember, 260-1280 is the number to call. And right now we're going to go to the listener line. JJ in Dallas. JJ, what's going on this Tuesday, January 2nd?
What's going on, Jeff? Happy New Year to you guys.
Happy New Year.
New Year.
Hey, man, you will probably recognize me. I'm on Twitter during the games every Sunday, tweeting you constantly. My handle's Coach. So a couple of things I want to bring up. Number one with the Saints, it's really strikingly similar to me the year they won the Super Bowl, kind of how they finished the year, and they had that tough loss to Tampa at the end of the year at home, lost by a field goal. Everybody was talking about, they're not hot going into the playoffs. Then all of a sudden they turn it on as the playoffs. I kind of get that same feel with this team, and hopefully they can turn it on like that. But I think what concerns me is outside of Michael Thomas, our receiving core just seems not able to get separation. Tight end, lack of a tight end is an issue. And I think that's going to be a problem because we're just not able to get that separation. I think it's really hurting us on third downs. Just want to get your thoughts on that and kind of, where do you think they'll head as far as in the offseason to attack that problem?
Great. Thanks, JJ, and good points all around. I do see some similarities to the 2009 end of the season. I actually pointed that out in my column that just because you lose your last game doesn't mean it's a death knell for the playoffs. I mean, look around the league. The Eagles lost their season finale. The Rams lost their season finale. The Panthers lost their season finale. But I think a bigger concern extends beyond that. The Saints, the last 6 games are 3-3. They've lost all 3 of their final road games, and now they're going to be asked if they are able to win against the Panthers. Potentially, they have to go on the road and win 2 games to make it to the Super Bowl. To me, that's the more concerning situation right now. I think some of the injuries are starting to add up on this team.
Yeah, you pointed out, that they've lost their last 3 road games, and I think that's really important because, that sort of reverses the trend. I mean, they had struggled at home for the previous 3 years when they were going 7-9, but now they're a much better team at home this year. Obviously, they got going on the road this year when they started that 8-game win streak. They won Carolina, which I think is a big reason why. I was talking to some players yesterday about why that was the turning point, and they said that Sean Payton told them before that game in Carolina week 3 that was the opportunity they had to make it a turning point, because if you beat Carolina there and then you go to London and beat Miami, all of a sudden you're 2-2 at the bye week, and that's exactly what they did. Went on to win 6 more games. Their biggest win was on the road by the most significant margin over the Bills. So, I mean, they definitely could win on the road. I have to disagree with you, though, Jeff, on the comparison to 2009, because when you start, they started 13-0 that year, and at that point, that you're going to have home field advantage, whether it's throughout the playoffs or whether it's as the 2 seed. And, I think that's a much different scenario than what the Saints went through this year. I mean, you saw they struggled against the Jets, and then they dominated the Falcons. But, I mean, they weren't in the playoffs until week 16 when they beat the Falcons. So I think it's just a different mentality, different approach, when, you don't know exactly where you're standing. Week 17, we could certainly write off, but up until then, I don't think you could have.
No, that's a good point. The Saints won 13 games to start the 2009 season. We'll probably never see that again. What I wanted to get your thoughts, though, on what JJ said. I think a lot of people have noticed that this team right now is very heavily reliant on Michael Thomas as the go-to number 1 receiver, and then their next 2 top receivers are Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. So really there's a drop-off. They're not getting much production at all now that the tight end position is wide open with Kobe Fleener out. And this is just who they are now. This is probably the byproduct of trading away Brandon Cooks. You trade Kenny Stills, you trade Jimmy Graham, and you're left with, at some point, not much depth at the receiving core. The drop-off of Willie Snead has really been startling. And Ted Ginn Jr. is probably putting up the numbers we all expected him to put up when he came here. They're almost identical to what he put up last year in Carolina, but the rest of the group not producing as much as we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I think the Ted Ginn thing, is something that's curious to me because, for the first, half of the season, he was great. I mean, I remember that Packers game. He was dominant. He was getting open on crossing patterns, turning them into big gains, turning screens into big gains. And the Saints have sort of gone away from that. I don't know if it's because, Ginn isn't getting as open or because, they're trying to do other things. But I certainly would think that against the Panthers, they're going to find ways to utilize him. And I think definitely it should be a concern that their other wide receivers besides Michael Thomas aren't getting that open. And frankly, Michael Thomas doesn't always get that wide open. There are a few plays where he does, but a lot of times he's making really tough contested catches, and Drew Brees just has to trust that he's going to do that. And obviously Michael Thomas has earned that trust. I wrote a few weeks ago about how Brees is throwing to Thomas this year at a higher rate than any other player throughout his career. Number 2 and number 3 were LaDainian Tomlinson and Antonio Gates all the way back with the Chargers. So, while, the Saints are throwing less, he's throwing to Michael Thomas more, and he sort of has to because Willie Snead isn't getting open. Brandon Coleman's not getting open. They really don't have a threat at tight end. I guess Josh Hill, but he's been dealing with injuries, having the, fumble issues, so it's hard to, say that he's going to add a whole lot. But, ultimately, for this game, I don't think it's that big of a concern. I think they have enough weapons on the outside to, beat this secondary in Carolina. But moving forward, it's going to be an issue against Minnesota or Philly because their secondaries are much better.
Okay, 260-1280. That's the number to call. Let's go to one more caller before we take another break. Larry in Baton Rouge. How you doing, Larry, and Happy New Year?
Happy New Year, man. Happy New Year to y'all both.
Happy New Year.
What I wanted to say was I really think just to pick up on the offense, I feel like the offense has to get it going because I think it's at times, at times in the last 3 games, we had a chance, to put the dagger. That's the perfect word to say, to put the dagger in some of these teams, and we go 3 and out. We end up having a stalled drive. Now, I've been high on the defense for the past couple of weeks. Now, in Tampa Bay, yeah, we did get the turnovers. However, we didn't have that same – I just feel like we didn't have that same pass rush that we had in the Atlanta game. I think it will come back this Sunday in the Carolina game, but my whole thing is I just feel like my biggest concern right now is the offense. It can't be a one-man show with Kamara. Kamara is good. He's talented. I love Kamara. But teams are starting to key in on Kamara. And, I just feel like, just like you said earlier, one of these wide receivers has to get open. I mean, Willie Snead, we haven't really just seen that much from Willie Snead this year. But someone has to step up besides Ted Ginn and Michael Thomas. It's got a third man has to step up. And the last thing I want to say is, as I say all the time, if the Saints doesn't beat the Saints, I believe the Saints could beat any team in the NFC, whether it's Minnesota or Philadelphia. I'm just being serious on that, because if the Saints are hitting on all cylinders, special teams, defense, offense, I'm sorry, man. I really think the Saints could beat one of those teams if they're hitting on all cylinders, whether it's in Minnesota or whether it's in Philadelphia. As far as the cold weather condition goes, I wouldn't let that really get to us, because if we look at it, we went to Buffalo, and it was like that day. It was like 25 degrees. It was real cold. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Larry. Good points all the way around. I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's take a break first, and then when we come back from our first break, Josh and I will talk about some of the points Larry made, because he made some good points, and I agree with him. I don't think cold weather is a huge issue for this team, but let's face it, no one wants to play in Philadelphia in the middle of January in freezing cold weather. This team is going to probably go as far as Drew Brees can take them, and frankly, he's going to be better in a dome stadium the way this Saints passing attack works. But I do think they're better built to win in the playoffs on the road than they have been in past years. All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, Josh and I will break down Saints-Bucks and look ahead to the Saints-Panthers. You're listening to Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder.
Your shot at $1,000 now. Text the keyword BANK to 200-200. You'll get a text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio info. Standard data and message rates apply. That's BANK to 200-200. Corey Johnson.
Kamara can run between the tackles and is physical. And I would say Ingram hits the holes and hits the defensive linemen and linebackers at least as hard, if not harder than Kamara. But Kamara is like Teflon, man. They can't tackle this kid. It's a nice dynamic duo, those two at running back.
Join Corey Johnson on The Neutral Ground, 4 till 6 on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
As a small business owner, you make every dollar count. So what could you do with $10? Go to Vistaprint.com today and you'll get 500 high-quality custom business cards for only $9.99. That's less than 2 cents per card. And at Vistaprint, your satisfaction is absolutely guaranteed. So it's never been easier to turn 500 strangers into connections. Just visit Vistaprint.com and use promo code 3030 at checkout. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code 3030.
Credit products are made by WebBank. Amazon is not a sponsor of this promotion. Other restrictions apply. See website for details.
I was building my savings, but I got hit with an unexpected car repair bill.
Need to borrow $2,000 to $35,000? Try Avant.
There were no prepayment fees and no collateral required. Check your rate with no impact to your credit score.
Now, Avant will give you a $50 Amazon.com gift card after your first payment is made on time. Go to Avant.com and enter promo code 2000 when applying. That's AVANT.com, promo code 2000.
Your car has lots of lights. You've got headlights, interior lights, the light that comes on when you open your glove box. But there's one light that's the best of the bunch, your check engine light. And at AutoZone, we have the tools to help you troubleshoot the real problem for free. Whether it's something serious or something simple like a loose gas cap, you'll get a MyZone health report to help save you money and hassle down the road. So if your check engine light comes on, come on over to AutoZone and let's get you what you need.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Hi, this is Jennifer Coolidge.
30 seconds.
Heart Association says the disco song Stayin' Alive is the near-perfect beat for hands-only CPR. If you see a teen or adult collapse from cardiac arrest, you only need 2 steps to help save a life. Call 911 and push hard and fast in the center of the chest to the beat of the song
All right, no callers yet.
Disco is back and it's saving lives. To learn more, go to heart.org/hands-only-CPR.
Nationally supported by the WellPoint Foundation.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back, Duncan Holder. Back in the saddle, January 2nd, Tuesday, 2018. We are reviewing the Saints' loss, season-ending loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we want to get your thoughts, so if you want to call in, 260-1280. Love to get your opinions on where the Saints are at right now and what their prospects are against the Carolina Panthers on Sunday in the wild card round of the playoffs. Also would like to get your thoughts on LSU. If you'd like to call in, LSU with a 21-17 loss to Notre Dame in the Citrus Bowl yesterday. A little bit of a disappointment. Had a lot of opportunities to win that game and just didn't get it done. The kicking game really came home to roost against Notre Dame. Missed field goals, lots of opportunities in the red zone to put away the Irish. And LSU couldn't get it done, and now they go into an uncertain offseason with potential change at offensive coordinator. It's been widely reported that Matt Canada and Ed Ogeron will be parting ways, and so I'm not sure what the future holds for the LSU offense because I think that's such a critical position and one that's held LSU back, frankly, for a number of years. When you look at trying to contend with Alabama and that Goliath in the SEC West and what we saw last night from Alabama's defense, they are so dominant. You have to have elite quarterback play to beat Alabama. You cannot beat them running out just a game manager because they're just too dominant on that side of the ball. What I saw last night from Alabama was just lights out, run defense, dominated the point of attack up front, and Kelly Bryant just couldn't make enough plays in the passing game to really ever threaten Alabama vertically.
Well, at least some of the interceptions, led to some excitement when that big D lineman,
that was fun.
Was rumbling down field.
Ron Payne.
But it was really crazy to me that Clemson even got back here, with the guys that they lost from last season. I mean, specifically Deshaun Watson. I mean, I guess it speaks to the program that Dabo Swinney has built, up there in Clemson. But I just think, Alabama, you give them a month to prepare for anyone, and they're going to be tough to beat, with Nick Saban. And, I don't like Jalen Hurts that much. I don't think he's very good. But, they can do just enough on offense, that their defense can carry them in most games. Now, I'm curious to see, how they'll do against Georgia, just because that Georgia offense really looked unstoppable. And certainly, the Oklahoma defense is not as stout as Alabama's, but I certainly think, the Bulldogs, should have a good shot at this.
Well, with that running game, I mean, they have a dominant running game, great running backs, and the young quarterback can make plays. I mean, he's a big-time player, a big-time prospect. I think it's going to be a great, typical SEC, kind of in the trenches, defensive battle, and some people going to have to make some plays on the perimeter because I think both these teams line up and just say, is your man better? Is your Jimmy better than my Joe? And you got to beat me on the perimeter.
Well, who was that linebacker for
Roquan Smith for Georgia? Yeah,
he was a monster.
Top
oh my
draft
God.
pick. Saints fans should watch him because he's the kind of guy I think they could really use. He's got great range. He's a Deion Jones type.
Yeah, I have to admit I haven't watched as much college football this year as I have most years, but I'm going to have to go watch his tape because he's a monster, and he would be a perfect fit for the Saints based on what I saw yesterday. He's got range to cover, great tackler, great instincts, and, I mean, he was just – he was really the difference, I thought, for Georgia in that game because, in a, shootout like that you just need a few stops, and he managed to make them. I mean, we know Alabama has plenty of defensive stars, but I think Georgia, with him, has a chance to limit that Alabama running game.
That's Josh Katzenstein. Josh sitting in, pinch hitting for Larry Holder, who is off today. He'll be back with us tomorrow. And don't worry, he is not backing out of his head shearing, as we are now calling it. That's going to go down on Thursday. If you haven't heard, time and date and site are set Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. at Tracy's Bar on Magazine Street in Uptown New Orleans. I've already talked to a lot of people there. We're expecting a big crowd and a lot of fun, and we're going to draw this thing out. We're going to make it a ceremony, and I think everybody's going to get involved. Maybe everybody gets a shot at Larry's head.
I'm excited. I mean, this is going to be the highlight of the new year for me. I know it's young, and we'll see if we can top it outside of the first week of January, but this is going to be great. I can't wait
to see what he looks like.
I can't wait to see what he looks like.
I have no idea what he's going to look like.
I hope Larry's listening right now because he knows it's not going to be good. I mean, I know the nice thing about Larry is that his hair should grow back, but for the 6 months before it gets back to his normal length, it is going to be a sight to see.
I mean, he's looked exactly the same as long as I've known him. He's had that long Bama Bangs hair. It's just going to be really, really weird to see him with a cue ball.
So who decided that we're actually just going to, shave it fully? I vote that we should make him look like Larry from the Three Stooges and just, have the, the big bald spot and the little rim of hair around the edges.
The Friar Tuck kind of look?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Well, we can do whatever we want. We can see where this thing takes us.
We need pictures throughout the shaving. We need, we just need to see what Larry looks like with, the big bald spot. Maybe just leave the big strand of hair, when we're almost done. It's going to be great.
I just think it's funny that we're going to do this. He delayed it for a couple weeks as we were trying to find a site and a location, and now we have the coldest stretch. It seems like in New Orleans history. It's freezing outside here, and he's going to have to go bald on top right in the middle of the cold weather.
Yeah, I heard it might snow on Wednesday, and so that's going to be a couple bad days for Larry. If it snows, and then he's got to go shave his head, and it's brutal. But I have to give Larry.
He should learn a lesson.
Look,
never make these bold proclamations.
Hold on. I have to give Larry some credit because what he actually said was, if they win 10 games, I'll shave my head. It would have been so easy for him to back out of it.
They did win 10 games.
No,
that's the point. They won 10 games. He keeps saying that. They won 10 games.
No, but here's the thing. They won 11 games.
I know, but they won 10.
Look, but if he wanted to take the easy way out, he could have done it. But he's not going to, and I have to give him credit.
I'm not giving him credit for that at all. That's the spirit of the bet. He was basically saying they're going to stink this year. They're 0-2. It's the same as always. Matter of fact, that was his exact statement. It's the same thing over and over again. I said, look, it's still early.
Life, Jeff, is about loopholes, and so I'm giving him a little bit of credit for not taking one here. But I'm glad he's not because I can't wait to see what he looks like. I can't wait to see him walk into the locker room on Sunday after the Saints game and just to see what Drew Brees or Sean Payton have to say about it. I guess that's one reason to hope the Saints win, just so that they're in a good enough mood to comment on it.
I guarantee you Sean Payton's going to have a comment. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. All right, let's take a break, and we will come back and talk a little more about Saints-Bucks, look ahead to the Saints-Panthers as well as we get through this Tuesday afternoon, January 2nd. You're listening to Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We are Dunc and Holder.
I wasn't licensed to have one. The minute they see me, fear me. I'm the epitome of public enemy.
Your forecast on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
This report is brought to you by Unbound.org.
You got a mic in Slidell.
Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. After another frigid start,
You got me, Hefe?
climb into the mid to upper 30s this afternoon. So bundle up. It will feel even colder because of that breeze. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds today with virtually no chance for rain. But tonight, between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m., one or two snow flurries could fall across the area. That's because it will be so cold once again. Temperatures will be in the hard freeze territory for both sides of the lake. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Have a great day.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing.
Hey, Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah, you got a mic in Slidell.
Okay, out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go.
There was nothing friendly about it.
As a
No, it
marketer,
was
you
almost
want
like-
to reach everyone,
it was almost
adults,
like they were
teens, millennials. But it's not like these groups all hang out in the same place, right? Actually,
Right.
wrong.
No, like
They're
Cutter,
all
you
right
could
here,
tell Cutter
listening to radio
knew
commercials,
Peyton
just
was
like
in a
this
bad
one.
mood, like right away
Radio
when he
ads
was
connect
yelling,
with
"Good job,
93% of
good job."
Americans
It was-
every week.
It was so
That's more than
condescending.
Google,
Yeah, it
more than
was.
Facebook, more than TV. In fact,
Yeah, that's
radio
when
reaches
Peyton came back
20%
at it.
more
Right.
millennials
No, no,
than
no.
TV.
I saw someone
What
pointed
more
out,
of the
they're
people
like-
you want
they're
to
like,
talk
you could
to all
tell
in one
that
place?
Peyton
You want to get to
was waiting
iHeartMedia.com
for
and
Cutter
get
to say
AM/FM
something so that he would have a
working for you.
reason to launch into his thing, but he didn't. So then Peyton's finally just, went with it.
Please drive around.
I'm going with
10,000 what? It's obvious you're buzzed and driving.
I've only had a few. I'm fine.
Yeah, the food's $12, but getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Please drive around. Actually, just park and come in.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It'll be Alabama and Georgia battling for the national championship next week in Atlanta. In the Sugar Bowl, the Crimson Tide, the Thrones defending national champion Clemson 24-6. They blow it open in the third as the Tide's defense scores a pair of touchdowns just 13 seconds apart. Alabama defensive lineman Deron Payne with a 21-yard interception run. He then scores on the ensuing drive on a 1-yard pass from quarterback Jalen Hurts.
All right, 30 seconds.
Georgia outlasting Oklahoma 54-48 in double overtime, and they win it on running back Sony Michel's 27-yard touchdown run.
I mean, when the play was called, everybody just looked each other in the eyes, and everybody did their job.
Michel with 181 yards and 3 TDs. Notre Dame over LSU
Sonny Michel's
21-17
really
in the Citrus Bowl.
Oh my God.
That's
That guy's a
sports.
player.
Joel Stern, NBC News.
I was a huge Chubb fan before.
We bleed purple, green, blue, black, and gold. Sports 12.
Don't forget Mike and Slidell.
Welcome back. Duncan Holder plowing through hour one of this Tuesday edition of the show. And we're going to go right to the caller line. We got Mike and Slidell calling in. Mike, how you doing today? Happy New Year.
Hey, I'm doing good. Happy New Year, guys.
What's going on?
Since we're making nothing much, I just want to talk about, since y'all guys are making comparisons, this team reminds me a lot of the 2006 team. And I think they're really young, but they're a good team, but I just think they're missing some pieces. And the reason I say that is because the 2016 and 17 drafts kind of set us up for where we are right now, but the 2014 and 2015 drafts hurt this team bad. And we could have got Jarvis Landry, but instead we drafted Stanley Jean-Baptiste. I mean, we could have drafted Daniil Hunter at the defensive end, but we drafted Gary Grayson. I mean, things like that set us back. But, I mean, last year's draft and this year's draft definitely helped this team, and I think we're set up for the future.
Yeah, Mike, that's a great
talking about
point.
Receiving options, we're missing some because of the draft. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Mike, great points. And I could not agree with you more. And I think the Saints know that, frankly. I think Sean Payton knows that. They made changes in the scouting department to address some of the inadequacies there, some of the personnel busts that we've seen over the years. And I think they've got that rectified with Jeff Ireland and his staff. The last two drafts have been very productive. And, yeah, if you're a Saints fan, I think this year, most Saints fans, I really feel are realistic about this team. And I agree with you, Mike. I think it's a lot like the 2006 team, which also had a very similar kind of arc to the season. They started out like a house of fire. Were kind of, rolling on emotion early on with the punt block by Steve Gleason and the dome reopening. And then by about mid-season, they just kind of started treading water down towards the stretch, got to the NFC Championship game. But that was about as far as they were going to go. And I feel like this team is probably about a year away, maybe 2 years away from really getting back to Super Bowl contention. But at least they're on the right track. I mean, this draft class from this year is without question the best they've had since 2006. And it's a core now. They have a core that they can build around with the kind of playmakers that you just don't get. Marshawn Lattimore, Alvin Kamara, those guys are special talents.
Mike, I'll get to the 2006 comparison in a second, but you said, they could have taken Jarvis Landry instead of Stanley Jean-Baptiste, which, fair point, but in my opinion, there's only one other person that they should have considered in that spot, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo. best quarterback in the NFL. I mean, at this point, I mean, he's the only player that really came out of the 2014 draft. I mean, he is the best quarterback in NFL history, and the Saints had an opportunity to get him, and instead they took Stanley Jean-Baptiste.
Look,
I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what they were thinking.
The Saints loved Jimmy Garoppolo. They just didn't love him quite as much as Bill Belichick did, who beat him to the punch.
No. They didn't love him as much as Stanley Jean-Baptiste.
Well, that was ultimately what cost Rick Ripers his job as the college scouting director and director of play personnel. That mistake was egregious, and it did set this organization back because it started them trying to patch the cornerback position with veteran free agents like Brandon Browner, and it was just this merry-go-round that never got solved. Now you see what a real, true shutdown cornerback is like. When you see Marshawn Lattimore and then you reference back to some of these guys the Saints were trotting out there, you see the real thing compared to some of these imposters that were out there playing corner.
Well, look, if Taysom Hill can play special teams for the Saints, I don't know why Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't have played cornerback. I mean, this guy is already in the Hall of Fame. They should have just drafted him, put him at any position. He would have been a star, and then they would have had their future whenever Drew Brees is done. But I'll get past that. 2006 comparison, I think, is a great one. I think, this team, as good as it is and as much as people want to compare it to the 2009 season, I think 2006 is probably a better comparison just when you look at, the rookie running back coming in and dominating. Well, I don't know about dominating, but, being, effective as a runner and as a receiver. It was Reggie Bush in 2006. Now it's Alvin Kamara this year. Then you had the power guy with Deuce compared to Mark Ingram. You had a young receiver being super productive with Colston. Obviously, his first year compared to Michael Thomas in his second. But certainly, I think with the reliance on a good rookie class, this is definitely a better comparison. And who knows, maybe in a few years, or maybe as quickly as next year, based on how well these rookies are playing, as well as the second-year guys. I mean, we don't talk nearly as much about the 2016 draft class as we probably should, with Rankins, Michael Thomas. I mean, that has been a really good group for them. But, I have to think that, if, the Saints don't go all the way, there will be a lot of people thinking, okay, they just needed to learn from this year, and whether it's next year or a few years, then maybe that'll be the team that gets compared to 2009.
260-1280 if you want to call and participate in the program. And I want to get your thoughts, Josh. We were talking earlier, and I tweeted this out a little while ago. I think this was kind of eye-opening. It's nothing that we don't already know, but sometimes it's, I think, important to get some perspective. We hear a lot of people complaining about the offense or questioning the offense. And I think we've been spoiled around here with the Saints' excellence in the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era. They finished second in the league in total offense this year. It's the 12th year in a row in this era that they finished in the top 6. And it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times out of those 12 years in the Brees era, they finished first or second in the league in total offense. But you pointed out, and I think it's something that we should look at going forward, because I think the undoing of this offense this year has been on third down. So trot out some of those numbers, because this has characteristically been a very strong part of the offense. Third down efficiency, they move the chains. I think they led the league in third down efficiency going into this year 3 years in a row. And this year they finished where?
So this year, and I want to give a shout out to Larry in Baton Rouge. I hope you're still with us because you're the one who brought this to our attention. I mean, obviously we've been seeing the struggles on third down all year, but if you look, this year the Saints ranked 19th in third down conversion percentage. They're at 37.6%. Now 19th, I mean, when you consider that, they still had one of the top offenses in the league. I mean, they were managing to do that by converting on first or second down. They also had the number 1 fourth down conversion percentage in the NFL. So, I mean, they've managed to overcome the issues on third down. But it is very uncharacteristic for this team because from 2014 to 16, they were first place in third down conversions. Now, obviously, they went 7-9 in those years. So, I mean, that's really all you need to know about that not being the most important statistic that there is. But certainly it is important. They were third in 2013, fourth in 2012, first in 2011 with a ridiculous 56.7%. I mean, that's unheard of. I've never seen anything that high. I was just looking through all these years. And, really normally number one is slightly below 50%. The Saints are normally somewhere in the 40s, but 57% is absurd back in 2011. They were first in 2010, sixth in 2009, second in 2008, fourth in 2007, third in 2006. And we're talking about third down conversion percentage. So really, this is the worst third down team that Sean Payton has had during his tenure with the Saints. You have to go all the way back to 2004 for a team that was worse, at converting a percentage of third downs, because even the year before Peyton was here, they were 17th at 38.9%, slightly better than the 19th, 37.6% this year. But in 2004, they were 26, converting just 33.3%. So I know I just threw a lot of numbers at you, but basically, the third down conversions are something that Sean Payton has continually talked about this year, because they've had some games where it's just ridiculous. And it's a stat that I think often gets overblown because, all of a sudden, if you convert your first 5 third downs on your opening drive and you score a touchdown, then all of a sudden, the rest of the game, you're still going to have a pretty high percentage, even though that's just one drive.
Right.
So I think a lot of times it gets overblown, but over the course of the season and looking at, the way the Sean Payton team normally operates on third down, I definitely think it's got to be a concern.
Don't you think, it seems to me, watching the games this year, and I'd like to get some of the listeners' thoughts on this as well, but it seems to me when I'm watching, defenses are really zeroed in on Mike Thomas and Alvin Kamara now on third down. They know those are the go-to guys, and a lot of them are double-teaming Thomas on third down. They know that's where Breeze likes to look first, and there's just not a lot of other people winning one-on-one, especially now that Coby Fleener's out, tight ends aren't winning, and the other receivers aren't winning. So they're pretty predictable, I think, on third down, where they're going to go. They're going to do one of those drop-off swing passes to Kamara, and lots of times he's so good he gets it anyway, and same with Ingram. But there's just not – this team needs another receiver. I don't think there's any doubt about it, and I think that's one of the first places they will go in the offseason, whether it's free agency or the draft or maybe both.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I keep coming back to Ted Ginn because I don't know that he's gotten enough credit. It says, they only have one receiver, but, Ted Ginn had a pretty good year. This is probably statistically the second best year of his career and the best year since, I think, his second year in the NFL with the Dolphins. He almost set career highs, with, the Saints this year, but I think that he doesn't win necessarily on short routes. He's more intermediate and deep. So, yeah, they need someone who's going to get open, and really the best guy to do that should be Willie Snead. So, I don't know if they're not throwing to him by design. He's definitely not getting as open as he needs to be, but the Saints need to find a way to get him involved, because if Snead can do anything this postseason that he did the past 2 years, all of a sudden that's going to just completely change the complexion of this offense and give defenses another thing to worry about, because you're absolutely right. Right now, if it's Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas on the field, defenses can just focus on those two guys and know that, if they don't let either of them get free, they feel pretty good about their one-on-one matchups elsewhere.
Well, here's what's a little daunting when you pull back the lens and look at the big picture here. The Saints are looking at playing, okay, first of all, we know they got Carolina. That's the 7th-ranked defense in the league. And then potentially having to win road games against the Eagles, who have the 4th-ranked defense in the league. And I think a lot of people forget about that. The Eagles have a very good defense. It gets overlooked sometimes with Carson Wentz and all the notoriety of their offense. And then, of course, Minnesota leads the entire NFL in defense. So there's going to be no free passes here. There's going to be no blowouts, because these defenses they're facing are all top 10 defenses that can lock up the Saints, I think, to some degree on the perimeter. And it's going to be tough sledding. The Saints are going to have to use that running attack. I think that's what they're going to lean on heavily. But I think they're going to be in some tight games, just like they were in on Sunday against the Bucs when they couldn't put them away. I think Larry or somebody mentioned that earlier. That was a game where the Bucs were just hanging around, and the Saints kind of let them back into it. And once Tommy Lee Lewis fumbled that punt, it really changed the momentum. It gave life to the Bucs. You could see their body language on the sideline kind of change. And it was like a gift-wrap touchdown. All of a sudden, they had a battle on their hands, and the Bucs put it together there at the very end out of nowhere. But I think that's what we're probably going to see here for the rest of the way. There's going to be a lot of close games, and it's going to be execution in third down, the red zone, in those situational situations to see who wins these games.
Definitely. Can we talk real quick just about that drive
Which
by
one?
Jameis Winston.
The Bucs, yeah.
Yeah, that 95-yard drive. That was so ridiculous.
take
And
a break.
I might just say that real quick because, obviously I had to write the game story and had to just completely delete it when they scored. But, I mean, watching that, Jameis Winston had such a bad game through, the
awful.
first 3+ quarters.
He was awful.
Somehow he pulled it out. After 3 terrible passes, he converts 4th down, and then they just drive all the way down the field.
Yeah, well, let's take another break here before we get to the top of the hour. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about that Bucs game because I want to get into some of the things that I saw that were a little concerning to me for the Saints going forward. You're listening to Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We are Dunc and Holder.
All they just say is please me.
New Year's resolutions. Losing weight? Yeah. Being a better person? A better person. Whatever. Winning Pelicans tickets? Tickets? Yeah. Keep listening for your chance to win Pels tickets on Sports 1280 New Orleans. And start 2018 with all the games on News Talk 99.5.
They've been running well in Carolina.
Stay focused on your goal for 2018 while using that new toy.
Alexa, play iHeartRadio Spin Cycle.
iHeartRadio has stations and playlists perfect for your workout. 24-hour cardio mix, hip-hop workout radio, club jam country, plus playlists like rock workout, electronic dance workout, and more. Let iHeartRadio help you succeed in 2018. All your favorite music, all your favorite stations, all free.
This is water. Can you feel this, Helen? Yes, water! Helen, it's water!
Deaf and blind, Helen Keller overcame her world of darkness. Foresight, pass it on from the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
If you didn't check out Britney Spears at her Vegas show over the past 4 years, you're out of luck. She wrapped up her residency there with a nearly 2-hour show on New Year's Eve. On Instagram, she called it bittersweet, but said she's looking forward to an amazing 2018. Lady Gaga begins a 2-year Vegas residency later this year. Bruno Mars is being accused of ripping off a song to create Uptown Funk. The 70s rap group The Sequence has filed a lawsuit accusing the 32-year-old singer of stealing from their own 1979 single, Funk You Up. The star of Ugly Betty and Superstore is about to be a mom. America Ferrera took to Instagram on New Year's Eve to tell the world she's pregnant with her first child. But Kendall Jenner's shutting down pregnancy rumors. Speculation the 21-year-old reality star is expecting emerged over the weekend after she posted an Instagram photo of her in a skin-tight dress. She later tweeted she just likes bagels. And the sexiest man alive says no one should see him naked. When asked if he walks around the house in the nude, Blake Shelton told People he looks like half-melted vanilla ice cream without his clothes on.
Don't we all?
He doesn't even want his dog to see him naked. That's entertainment. Sharon Reed, NBC News Radio.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder. Back at you in hour 1, January 2nd, 2018. It's going to take me a while, Josh, to get used to writing that out. I've already blown it once today on one of the story assignments I turned in. 2018 looks very promising for the New Orleans Saints. They'll be in their first playoff game coming up this Sunday against the Carolina Panthers in the Superdome. I'm sure it's going to be an electric environment. You know, Sean Payton talked about that after the Bucs game. He's looking forward to getting a home game for the first time in a while. This team is 7-1 this year in the Dome. They've won 7 in a row since that opening loss to the Patriots. And need I remind anyone that might be doubting this team, they are 4-0 in the Superdome in the postseason under Sean Payton. So they are, what, 6.5 point favorites this Sunday? Yes. Yep. Seems like a big line to me because I think it's going to be a close game, but indicative of the home field advantage that the Saints have. They've beaten almost everybody recently by double digits there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really curious to see just how loud that stadium gets, if they can match the intensity from that Atlanta game, because we saw early in that game just how much the crowd was actually affecting it. And no offense to the fans out there, but I think that can be overblown a lot of times, because, look, most of the NFL stadiums get pretty loud, except the two in LA where, they can barely, fill the stadium. But, everyone talks about, Seattle and the impact up there, but I think Seattle was just a good home team because they were a good team. And I think that's been the case for the Saints, when they've been really good in the Dome. They've just, had good teams, and that's why they win at home. But I think in that Atlanta game, you saw, early on there were some offensive penalties, a couple false starts. There was one drive where, they had 3 penalties in a row to start a drive. The Falcons did, and it set up 1st and 40, which, is like a crazy thing to have happen. So, I'm sure the Saints will, be tweeting out stuff and posting stuff on social media about, encouraging their fans to cheer for all 60 minutes or wave the white towels whenever, the video board says so. Because, look, Drew Brees says it all the time. He tweeted out a photo of the Saints merch the other day and said, this division title was for you fans, and I think they really want to give, this city something to cheer about on Sunday. So, they're going to try really. They would try to win no matter where they are, but I think they really want to win this one at home, before they have to go and, see if they can win on the road.
Well, to win, I think they're going to have to run the ball a lot better than they've been running it lately. They only had 92 yards rushing, 3.5 yards a carry. That's well below their standard. They led the league in yards per carry average. I think they were 5th overall in running the ball. And if they can't run the ball against Carolina's front 7, which they've had success this year running the ball against them, I think they had 149 yards rushing in the first game in week 3, and then 148 against Carolina later in the season. They got to get back to establishing the ground game. And I think most teams now know this is going to be the Saints' bread and butter. And I thought the Bucs did a good job of kind of limiting the Saints on the ground. Even though the Saints had some nice runs, they didn't have any big jailbreak runs, big gainers. They made the Saints earn their way down the field for everything they got. And really, I thought defensively did a good job when you consider that 7 of the Saints' points came on a kickoff return for a touchdown by Kamara.
Yeah, definitely. And as I mentioned earlier, getting Armstead back and Hooman, that should certainly help the rushing attack. And, what they didn't have Armstead for the first game against the Panthers back in week 3. But in that game, like you said, they ran 149 yards. Alvin Kamara had the big 25-yard touchdown run along the right side. That was really impressive. And I just want to mention, I know a lot of people, whether it's fans, media, players, whoever it is, people love to say when it's a divisional matchup in the playoffs that it's hard to beat a team 3 times.
Oh, yes. You've got a good stat on this. This is really interesting for everyone out there that thinks the Saints can't win on Sunday because they've already beaten Carolina twice.
Teams that swept the regular season against a division opponent are 13-7 in the third rematch in the postseason. So let's just put that to bed.
It's a little bit of a
stupid
myth.
Stat. It's a total myth. People, look.
1 minute.
It's not hard to beat a team. It's not as hard to beat a team for a third time as it is to beat a team that dominated you the first 2 times. And let's look at this. The first 2 games against the Panthers, the Saints dominated 31-21 this past game. Then, when they were in Carolina, it was 34-13. This Panthers team can't hang with the Saints, or at least they couldn't in the first 2 games. So unless Cam Newton can pull out a miracle, I think, we'll probably see the same result on Sunday.
Yeah, I
30
agree.
seconds.
It's a great matchup for the Saints. The best one I think they could have had, considering all things the way the playoffs worked out. All right, that's hour 1 in the books, and we are back for another hour here after this big break at the top of the hour. You are listening to Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We'll be back after this break.
Public health advocates are worried about lower taxes on alcohol. The new tax reform bill cuts taxes by 16%. Good for businesses, but what about the cost to society? There is concern that lower taxes will lead to more underage drinking, more drunk driving, and more alcohol abuse. And while we're on the subject of alcohol, doctors say while there's no real cure for hangover, holiday or otherwise, there are some things that can help. Michael Bauer has the lowdown.
If the champagne or more took its toll on you for New Year's, Associate Professor at Penn Medicine, Dr. David Eisenberg, tells Time Magazine hangovers affect nearly every organ, so there's no magic cure to get rid of every symptom. He suggests drinking water before bed, drink Pedialyte or Gatorade for electrolytes, sweat it out through exercise, or eat greasy food to fill your stomach.
Health Update, Sarah Lee Kessler, NBC News Radio.
WODT WNOE FM HD2 New Orleans. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app. Search Sports 1280. Fox Sports Trending now.
Next Monday's national championship is all set in college football. It'll feature an SEC matchup between Georgia and Alabama. Bama reached the title game by dominating top-ranked Clemson in the Sugar Bowl, while Georgia won a double overtime Rose Bowl shootout over Oklahoma. Sooners' loss spells the end of the college career of former walk-on, now Heisman-winning quarterback Baker Mayfield, who, after the loss, had high praise for his coach, Lincoln Riley.
Being with the best coach in the country, there's a reason I'm sitting here today, and there's a reason that we've won 3 Big 12 titles in a row, and that I put myself in a good position going forward in the future. And there's a reason our team is in the playoffs this year. Words can't describe what he's meant to me, and for the other guys, I hope it's the same.
Also news from the NFL today, the Packers have removed Ted Thompson as GM. They'll keep him on as senior advisor of football ops. I'm Deb Carson.
Saving money can seem daunting.
All right, 4.5 minutes.
We don't think about it. And since we don't want to think about saving, we don't save. But now with an Easy Start certificate from Navy Federal Credit Union, you can keep not thinking about saving while actually saving. With recurring transfers, you automatically save money each month without ever thinking about it. It's simple, it's automatic, it's an easy start to saving. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Open to everyone in the Armed Forces, the DoD, veterans, and their families. Federally insured by NCUA.
I love that.
Here's a little fiction masqueraded as facts. Did you know that banks don't give loan modifications just because you're paying your mortgage loan late? A lot of people believe this and have been told this, but it's wrong. I'm John Hope Bryant, the founder of Operation Hope. Let us help you negotiate your lender in a logical way with a HUD-certified counselor for free to save your home today. Call 888-388-HOPE today or visit our website for more tips at operationhope.org.
There's a powerful connection between the dollar and Taco Bell, where you can unlock a world of 20 decadent menu items from breakfast to late night for just $1 each. 20 items for just $1. There are 20 steps.
That is a big thing.
I
tend to get that way.
Is the Illuminati behind this? Maybe it's the Bell Illuminati. Experience the power of the dollar at Taco Bell. At participating locations, prices may vary. Tax extra. Breakfast items available until 11 a.m.
Statistics show that 80% of Americans will give up on their New Year's resolutions by February. But there's one thing Americans never give up: AM/FM radio. In fact, TV reaches 86% of Americans. Radio commercials, just like this one, will reach 93% of Americans in every single week of 2018. So if you want to reach more moms, fans, teens, professionals, shoppers, and well, more of pretty much everyone, radio's the way to do it. Make a resolution to go to iHeartMedia.com and put radio to work for your company in 2018.
2018 is an opportunity to grow your business with top talent. But how do you find it? ZipRecruiter. One click posts your job to over 100 job boards. Then, smart matching technology instantly alerts quality candidates about your job. No wonder 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
To try ZipRecruiter for free, just go to ZipRecruiter.com/expand. That's ZipRecruiter.com/expand.
With the start of the new year, it might just be time to ask your boss for a raise.
Savvy New Year's resolutions will include making more money, and not only to indulge in luxuries. A consumer price index report says the cost of groceries will increase up to 2%, eating out will spike 3%, airfare will climb 3.5%, and hotel rates will go up by nearly 4%. AP Herald, NBC News Radio.
The surge in retail bankruptcy filings last year has some experts saying some of your gift cards could become worthless. According to credit research firm Moody's, consumers should be aware of possible store closures from Sears, J.Crew, Claire's, Neiman Marcus, GNC, and Nine West. However, the good news is most retailers will ask judges to honor gift card transactions during their Chapter 11 filings, which judges usually grant. As the population ages, it's getting more and more expensive to take care of our loved ones. Michigan's Merrill Lynch financial advisor, Missy Spickler, says it's important to make plans. Those plans, she says, should include employers making accommodations.
When it's their top-notch person having to care for their loved one, sometimes they're not so understanding, and I think they need to have some type of program or something to facilitate that.
She says when people have to take care of elderly loved ones, that will take its toll on the workplace. She says we are shifting from employers needing to think about maternity and paternity leave to employers needing to start thinking about caregiver leave. It looks like the president has resolved to continue moving things forward in positive financial fashion, and he says he expects 2018 to be a very good year for the country. Trump said 2018 will be a tremendous year that will see more stock market gains and
All right, 10 seconds.
returning to the United States. Trump also said the recently passed tax
Michael,
bill
watch the
will
Post
help
this week.
Got it.
Team Great. Consumer and business news, Elisa Z, NBC News Radio.
Starting now.
All right, bud. Welcome back. Duncan Holder, Hour 2. Hour 1 is in the books. As we fly without Larry Holder today, who is tending to a, what would you call it, custodial crisis at his house on the West
crisis.
Bank.
It happens. Look, as someone who comes from Minnesota, I can tell you that, the cold, as much as it wreaks havoc on everyone's, mood and their skin, it can really destroy a house in a hurry.
Yes. Pipes burst at the Holder residence. He is attending to that emergency. And so Josh Katzenstein, our colleague at NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, beat writer extraordinaire, covers New Orleans Saints 24/7 for us. He's sitting in, pinch hitting, last second, I might add. This is normally Josh's day off, so I thoroughly appreciate you jumping in to the saddle here with me and riding off into the sunset as we go into say goodbye to the Saints 2017 regular season and look ahead to the postseason.
I think it's too cold for a sunset out there, but I appreciate the invitation and happy to help.
Yeah, and I tell you, the weather, man, I felt bad for the people that came here for not only for the Sugar Bowl, the Clemson, Alabama fans that swarmed the French Quarter were here all weekend, and also just people that came to New Orleans for New Year's Eve. This is one of the big national, maybe even international destinations for New Year's Eve, and you and I were watching after the Saints-Bucks game back at our hotel lobby, watching the New Year's Eve festivities and the ceremony play out here on national TV, and it just looked very cold. There were still a lot of people here, but it looked very cold as what the Imagine Dragons played out.
Yeah, but I have to give them credit. I love, the fleur-de-lis. It looked fleur-de-lit when it was dropping instead of the ball. Like, I love that. And, look, obviously people come to New Orleans and they want it to be warm, but
yes,
it was probably a little bit warmer here still than wherever a lot of people were coming from because it was cold all over the country. It was like I had a friend in Minnesota yesterday texting me. She was out ice fishing, and it was 9 below zero.
Yes, negative temperatures.
Look, I mean, it stinks, but, that's weather for you.
260-1280 is the number to call to participate in the program. We want to get your thoughts not only on the Saints' season-ending loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because we're not going to turn the page entirely on that game because we haven't had a chance to talk about it, so we want to get your thoughts on that and also look ahead to the Carolina Panthers playoff game on Sunday at the Superdome. And we have Rick from Metairie on the line right now. Rick, Happy New Year. How's it going today?
Happy New Year. I'm doing well. How about y'all?
We're great.
Good. What's up, Rick?
I have a couple of questions. First of all, is Snead being punished I heard earlier y'all were talking about, well, nobody's getting open. I've been to a couple of games, not many. He's just not even targeted, and I think he's being, I think he's being punished for what happened early in the season. What's y'all's thought on that?
Rick, I don't think he's being punished. I mean, the Saints are trying to win games first and foremost. I don't think they're undermining their ability to win to not go his way, but I do think certainly Drew Brees has been looking in other directions more than he has in the past, strictly because he wants to get the ball to Mike Thomas and Alvin Kamara, his two best playmakers.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there was any punishment, I mean, it would have been early in the season, and frankly, his punishment comes from the league. So, the Saints might have been upset with him for getting that DUI, but ultimately, like Jeff said, they're trying to win. They know that they need to, move the ball down the field, and they know that they need to be better on third down. So if they're not getting Willie Snead the ball now, it's because he's not playing that well and he's not getting open. And now there might be some lingering effect from that suspension because, he missed some time in training camp with an injury. And then when you miss the first few weeks of the season, it's harder to, get into rhythm. And certainly Brees should have a good rapport with him because they played a few seasons together. But, that missed time, can, be really damaging. And that's been the case with Snead.
Yeah, I tell you, Rick.
Maybe that's it.
Well, Rick, I do think you make a good point, though. They've got to get Willie Snead somehow involved, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe that injury that you talked about, Josh, is actually undermining his ability to get open because he's just not the same guy. He's not getting open, and it's got to be more than him just missing the first 4 games of the year and being rusty. I mean, we're at the end of the year now, and this was a guy that Drew Brees called on often, especially on third down, and I don't see him down his number at all right now. So, Rick, you might have a good point.
Well, last year he caught 76 balls, I believe, and this year he's caught 8 in 8 games. That's ridiculous. Something's not right.
Yeah, we can't discount the mental aspect of this too because, for him, dealing with the injury, he didn't have a chance to impress in training camp in the preseason. B, when you come back and you're not able to get right back into your role, that can be, really disheartening. And, he never really leaped Brandon Coleman. This past game was the first week all season that he played more snaps than Brandon Coleman, and that probably had more to do with Coleman dealing with a neck injury than anything Snead was doing. But, yeah, Rick, you're right. 8 catches for 92 yards. It's just not good enough for Snead. And frankly, he's got to find some way to turn it around, whether that's, it has to do with, his fitness level, whether it has to do with his mental state, because, the Saints, as everyone keeps saying, they need another receiver to get open, and the best guy to do that is probably Snead.
I mean, that's basically, Rick, his season numbers are basically what he might have gotten in one game a year ago when he was putting up those numbers as the number 3 receiver behind Brandon Cooks and Mike Thomas. So, yeah, definitely disturbing numbers and a disturbing trend for the Saints because, as we've noted earlier, their third down numbers are way down, and I think a lot of it has to do with these guys like Snead not being able to get open as alternative options for Brees in addition to Thomas and Kamara.
All right, well, hey, enjoying the show. It's fun. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rick. Appreciate the call. If you want to call in and participate, 260-1280.
Gerald, Texas.
And we will take Gerald, who's calling in from Texas. What's going on in the Lone Star State, Gerald? How you doing, buddy?
Hello there, Jeff. I enjoy the show, buddy. First time calling in. Listen, hey, it is freezing over here, so we have the same weather that you guys have back home.
I think it's freezing everywhere, Gerald. It sounds like the whole country.
I think so, too. Yeah, most of the country looks like it's under the same. In fact, we have it good, I guess, compared to a lot of other folks. Josh was just saying his friend up in Minnesota. I can't imagine, temps 15 below and 2 below, and with wind chill factors even lower than that. That's insane.
Well, if you're a crazy Saints fan, you might not have to imagine. Maybe they'll give you a chance to fly up for the Super Bowl and experience 15 below for yourself.
There you go. At least it'd be in a nice warm dome. At least we hope, anyway.
What's on your mind, Gerald? What do you got?
As far as Snead and Ingram and Kamara, I don't know about Kamara if I would put him in the same category because he seems to find a crease where there aren't any. But, I think it all comes down to our offensive line. Gentlemen, we are hurting. For protection purposes and rushing reasons, we need a solidified offensive line. Not only to, like I said, to protect Breeze, but to make those holes. When on those games, all of the games that we won, when we had great balance of rushing and passing, the offensive line did a great job, and I think they've done a tremendous job all year. It's probably one of the untold stories of the NFL this year, how the Saints have made patchwork, accomplishments with this offensive line. But I do believe that especially going into the playoffs, and if you want to go deep into the playoffs, we need better offensive line play in general.
Yeah, Gerald, that's a good point. Thanks for the call from over in Texas. We really appreciate you listening and calling in today on your first call. You make some great points, Gerald. First of all, the offensive line has been a strength all year, but they're not the same when Terron Armstead isn't in the lineup. You have to move Andres Pete out to left tackle. I think it's clear that he's more comfortable at guard, and it just kind of has a domino effect along the rest of the line. They're not quite as dominant up front without Armstead. And it sounds like, I want to get your thoughts on injury updates real quick. I know we don't know anything official yet, but I'm assuming Armstead's going to be back this week.
Yeah, so he was dealing with a thigh injury last week, and it always seemed like he wasn't going to play against the Bucs Sunday, and frankly, that makes sense. You don't want to rush him back from injury because, he's dealt with so many injuries this year already. You got to give him a chance to get as healthy as possible for the playoffs. So I would be shocked if Armstead doesn't play. This guy has played through so many injuries. Pretty much if he can be 80%, 90%, I don't know the number, I'll have to ask him, but if there's a chance he'll go, he's going to play. So I would definitely expect him to be out on that field Sunday. But I have to disagree a little bit with Gerald. I think, in some of the tight games and in a couple of the losses, the Saints offensive line has struggled, but in so many of the wins, they were so dominant. You look at the rushing numbers, against the Falcons, that offensive line was dominant. Obviously, the Bills, both games against the Panthers, this offensive line was dominant. And in week 3, as I said earlier, they didn't even have Armstead. So I think, this offensive line deserves a lot of credit. And look, you're not going to be great every week. It's the NFL. Those guys get paid too, as everyone loves to say. That's one of my favorite sayings, from the players that they love to repeat. But I think this offensive line is certainly a strength. And, going into this game against the Panthers, as long as Armstead's out there, I expect them to just, blow out that, defensive line on Carolina and, probably run the ball really effectively.
Well, I think the offensive line is going to have to play up to their standard because there are no more, as I said earlier, free passes the rest of the way. Carolina's front line is one of the best in the league. Star Lotulelei, they have Julius Peppers. Obviously, the linebacker core is one of the best in the league. They've got to get after it up front and establish the run. But then after they get through Carolina, they're still going to have to play Philadelphia. They have Fletcher Cox, he's a Pro Bowler, an interior defensive lineman. Minnesota's front seven is stout at every position. Linval Joseph. I know they have Daniel Hunter. They are very good up front as well. So, again, this is what it's going to come down to, winning in the trenches, especially if they have to go on the road and play in cold weather. I don't think this cold weather is going away anytime soon. So they're going to have to be able to run the ball and protect Drew Brees. I know that's a no-brainer. We know that. But this offensive line has been a strength all year.
Well, look, real quick, Carolina's defensive line, production-wise, is one of the best in the league. But for whatever reason, the Saints have their number. In the 2 games earlier this year, the Saints averaged 5.5 yards per carry and 5.3 yards per carry, and Drew Brees was sacked a total of 2 times. So whatever the Saints are doing, they know how to beat that defensive line. So, like I said, if Armstead's out there, this game could get ugly. And even if he's not, I think there's a good chance, that they'll still win that matchup.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be back in a minute, and we will continue this talk about the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers. You're listening to Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We are Dunc and Holder.
Your shot at $1,000 now. Text the keyword WIN to 200.
We got a Terry in Slidell.
All right.
iHeartRadio info. Enter data and message rates.
That's one of Eric Asher's loyal listeners.
Okay.
Cool. We're already stealing people from the old station.
Les Miles jumping in with us this morning.
Hey Chris, you got to get me on more often. This is too much fun. I enjoy you. You have a great perspective.
The Chris Cordy Show. Weekday mornings 8 to 10 on Sports 1280. New Orleans.
Our iHeartRadio Music Awards coming back for the 5th straight year. Be here Wednesday, January 10th at 8 a.m. as the nominees are announced. Plus, get a sneak preview of the incredible performances. A show so big, it airs on 3 TV networks, TBS, TNT, and True TV. One night, Sunday, March 11th, live from the Forum in L.A. Our iHeartRadio Music Awards. Your songs, your artists, your awards. All kicking off Wednesday, January 10th. At 8 a.m.
The 4 for $4 from Wendy's has a lot of fans because it's a deal that gives you a sandwich plus 4 nuggets, a small fry, and drink, all for just $4. But now the 4 for $4 has more variety than ever with 8 sandwich choices.
I'm loyal to the double stack.
I'm Junior Bacon Cheeseburger through and through.
I pledge myself to the crispy chicken sandwich.
I'm loyal to my hunger. Whether you're loyal to one sandwich or all 8, the Wendy's 4 for $4 has a sandwich for you. So try them all and pick your favorite. Now that's deliciously different.
At participating Wendy's for a limited time. Offer not valid in Alaska and Hawaii.
Credit products are made by WebBank. Amazon is not a sponsor of this promotion. Other restrictions apply. See website for details.
I was building my savings, but I got hit with an unexpected car repair bill.
Need to borrow $2,000 to $35,000? Try Avant.
There are no prepayment fees and no collateral required. Check your rate with no impact to your credit score.
Now, Avant will give you a $50 Amazon.com gift card after your first payment is made on time. Go to Avant.com and enter promo code 2000 when applying. That's AVANT.com, promo code 2000.
It'll be Alabama and Georgia battling for the national championship next week in Atlanta. In the Sugar Bowl, the Crimson Tide, the Throne's defending national champion Clemson 24-6. They blow it open in the third as the Tide's defense scores a pair of touchdowns just 13 seconds apart. Alabama defensive lineman Deron Payne with a 21-yard interception run. He then scores on the ensuing drive on a 1-yard pass from quarterback Jalen Hurts. At the Rose Bowl, it's Georgia outlasting Oklahoma 54-48 in double overtime, and they win it on running back Sony Michel's 27-yard touchdown run.
I mean, when the play was called, everybody just looked each other in the eyes, and everybody did their job.
Michel with 181 yards and 3 TDs. Notre Dame over LSU 21-17 in the Citrus Bowl. That's sports. Joel Stern, NBC News Radio.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder. With you for about another 40 minutes or so. We are riding without Larry Holder today. Josh Katzenstein pinch hitting. And we were talking Saints, as usual. And we want to get your thoughts. 260-1280 is the number to call if you want to join in the program. And right now, we're going to go to Terry in Slidell, who's called in. Terry, Happy New Year. What's going on today?
Hey, guys, Happy New Year. Eric Asher told me he's going to be on a little bit late. That's why I found this station.
Yeah.
Can we switch subjects one time for
Sure.
a little second?
Yeah.
Talk about our shrimp boat captain as a coach at LSU. Because I got a question. Do y'all know if he's a gelding or not?
That I don't know, Terry. I'm assuming he's not.
Well, he sure showed it. He sure showed it yesterday when you got 4th and a goal inches from the goal line. You got Darius Geis, Darrell Williams, and you kick a field goal. I'm sorry, but Coach, you're not going to win us a national championship, and you're not going to win us an SEC championship by going for it like that. That's ridiculous. And he showed he had no kahunas, man. I mean, what do y'all think about that?
Well, Terry, I would agree with you in this regard. It surprised me that he didn't go for it there. Being a former, defensive lineman, a guy that knows you win up front in the trenches, he wants to establish that identity with the LSU team. But I don't think he's got the confidence right now in his offensive line. I think it showed yesterday that he didn't believe in them. And, they got down there earlier in the first half and couldn't punch it in on a quarterback sneak where Etling got stood up. Then they had the false start by the fullback, and they ended up missing a chip shot field goal. Their goal line offense was just disastrous yesterday, and it cost them the game.
The field goal kicking, too, that's been like that all year. So You know, I know that y'all were talking about the Saints. I just don't think we get off topic. And you had a previous call said about when the Saints played in Buffalo, it was 25 degrees. It was in the mid-40s, 50 degrees. It wasn't cold.
Yeah, that's what I thought, too.
If the Saints have to go outside and play in Philadelphia, and the temperature's in the single digits, wind chill 20 below zero, they're going to have trouble. You know, you looked at the game yesterday with the Patriots. It was 6 degrees. I mean, maybe Sunday. It was 6 degrees. You know, that's a cold weather team, and I'm sorry, the Saints are a dome team, and when the dome teams get outside, a warm weather team gets outside, and that kind of
You got a Mitch in Lafayette.
Football game.
Mitch Lafayette.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I think.
Thanks for calling, Terry.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I think you're absolutely right because, you know, a lot of people want to talk about Nick Foles, but, I mean, this Eagles team is built for the cold weather. I mean, that's why they traded for Jay Ajayi. They have LeGarrette Blount. I mean, good luck tackling those guys when it's 6 degrees or 0 degrees or 12 degrees. I mean, that's not going to be any fun for the Saints defense, especially considering how much they struggled tackling Peyton Barber last week in Tampa.
Yeah, I thought the Bucs ran the ball very well against them, and that's an area that the Saints have got to bolster going forward. And they're going to get tested on the ground against Carolina this week. It looks like Jonathan Stewart has a back injury. We're not sure of his playing status, but we know how Ron Rivera likes to operate on offense. They like to establish the ground game, and I think the X factor right now for the Saints is going to be stopping Cam Newton on the ground, because when the Saints played him earlier this year in Carolina, he was not running the ball like he is now, and that's the one area that I think could be a huge problem for the Saints. They haven't really faced a lot of running quarterbacks this year, and this guy's a 6'6", 250-pound beast.
Here's why I think it could be a problem. Because they don't have Kenny Vaccaro. I think in that second game, they actually did limit him pretty well. I mean, he had one big run that really accounted for all of his yards, and it came after the Saints had a pretty comfortable lead. So, you know, the Saints do know how to limit Cam Newton. That's one thing, you know, whether it's Cam Jordan or Sheldon Rankins setting the edge or them bringing on an extra defensive lineman. They found a way to, you know, sort of keep him in the pocket. And Cam Jordan loves to say, he's turned into a pocket passer, and we love it. So I think that's one thing, you know, that definitely bodes well for the Saints. However, without Kenny Vaccaro, you know, I don't know that the Saints really have anyone, you know, in that secondary that's going to be able to bring him down one-on-one consistently. I guess Marshawn Lattimore is a good tackler, but, you know, Von Bell has really struggled with tackling in a few of these games.
Sunday.
He had a bad game against Tampa. He's had some other miscues against the Falcons that stand out. And so I think that, you know, without Vaccaro, that's a big loss. Someone mentioned earlier that they need the pass rush to get better. The only way this pass rush is going to get better is if Trey Hendrickson comes back. I know we started talking about injuries earlier, but that's one really big one that we haven't talked enough about, because if Hendrickson comes back, I mean, all of a sudden you can reduce George Johnson's role a little bit. I think Hendrickson, you know, maybe not quite as strong against the run, you know, as Sheldon Rankins is, you know, when they move Rankins out on the edge. But I think Hendricks should be able to add a little bit of pass rush punch if he's able to come back.
260-1280 is the number to call if you want to join in and participate in the program. And we're going to go to the listener line right now. Mitch in Lafayette is calling in. Happy New Year, Mitch. What's going on today?
Happy New Year's, guys.
Happy New
really
Year.
Enjoyed the show. You've already addressed the third down issue conversion. I just have questions why Austin Carr was never given a shot, and why is Willie Snead lining up on the outside? He's a slot receiver. Also, tight end is a glaring need and a problem. I look at Gary Barnidge. I don't know if he's hurt or what his situation is, but the tight end spot is really just our downfall, in my opinion, with the third down. We have no one really to work the middle of the field with any kind of significance. Yeah, we have Thomas, but they're keying on him. They're doubling him. Don't seem like we're getting much separation at all. And also think Drew Brees is really not looking at Snead, or he's just not being targeted, or he's just fixated on Kamara, and understandably so. What are your thoughts on that?
Thanks, Mitch. Good points all the way around. First thing, Josh, Austin Carr. People have asked about him all year long. He's on the Saints practice squad, right? They signed him off of somebody's.
He's on the active roster.
Oh, he's on the active roster.
Yeah.
But they signed him off somebody after a release, right?
The Patriots released him after the final preseason game.
So you just have to assume that he's not ready to contribute. I know that's a big assumption sometimes, and you can't always just assume that they're doing the right thing, because we saw earlier this year Devontae Harris was out there and everybody was calling for King Crawley, and now King Crawley clearly looks like the better option at corner than Devontae Harris was. So what's up? What do you know? Have you heard any whispers at all about Austin Carr, or any feedback from players about what his ability is?
Well, I mean, I think his ability is actually pretty similar to Willie Snead. I mean, he's a little bit smaller than Snead. He's listed at 6 feet, 195. I don't know if he's quite 6 foot, but I mean, he is, the mold of a slot receiver. But as Terry said, I just want to correct him. Willie Snead isn't necessarily just a slot receiver. That's what his skill set suggests, but the Saints move their receivers around all the time. I mean, there have been plays where Zach Line is lined up on the outside. I mean, so, even if Snead isn't, filling that slot role, I mean, that just has more to do with, how the Saints always move their players more than anything, than Snead's doing. But, with Carr, I mean, I just don't think the Saints think he's ready. I mean, the only time he was active this year was Week 4 against the Dolphins, and the main reason he was active was because I think they thought that Willie Snead was going to be back for that game. So they had, him filling that role in practice. So when Snead was ultimately ruled out because of that hamstring injury back in Week 4, they gave Carr an opportunity, but I think he only played a few snaps, and the ball, never found him. So I think, he's really a year away from helping, and, we'll see, if he's the guy eventually that can, fill that role of Snead or become that guy that gets consistently open, because, as everyone has mentioned several times, they don't have anyone else that's getting open.
Yeah, and Mitch brought up Gary Barnage's name. Gary Barnage played, I think, for the Cleveland Browns, was pretty productive tight end. I think had some injury issues and ended up being a free agent and is on the street. But I think at this point, man, your roster is what it is. I mean, you're not going to find some savior on the street, because they probably looked, every team in the league has probably looked at Gary Barnage for one reason or the other and decided to pass on him. And to bring in a guy at this stage and try and learn the offense and make contributions, especially at like a critical position like tight end, I think that's a tall task.
Look, I don't want to give the Browns too much credit here, but if the Browns didn't think that he could help their offense, then I don't know why anyone would think that he can help their offense. So, yes, it's a problem that the Saints don't have a receiving threat at tight end right now, but I mean, that's just who they are.
Yeah, and I tell you, I think tight end will be an area they address in free agency. There's a lot of top flight tight ends that are hitting the market this year, assuming Jimmy Graham gets to the market, but he is the number one guy. I've had a lot of people ask me if they think the Saints would bring him back. I don't know the answer to that. I don't have a feel for it. I wish I had some better inside information or insight. We'll probably know more about that once the season's over and we can talk to some sources. But I would think Jimmy Graham would still be welcome back here, but he's going to cost a lot of money. He's having a big year. He had a big year. He caught a lot of touchdown passes this year. And I think Seattle wants him back. And Seattle is a team that was very disappointing this year. And I think to lose Jimmy Graham would be a bigger setback for them. I think they're going to reload and be right back in the mix next year. They had a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. They've got to get their offensive line fixed. But that's a team I think could bounce back and be right back in the mix next year.
Yeah, but Michael Bennett's a free agent. If you lose him, I mean, that'd be a huge loss.
I would be surprised if they lost him, though. He's a big-time player.
I mean, I would be surprised, too, but you never know how these things go. I mean, Michael Bennett, if you remember when they signed him the first time, they got him at a below-market deal. That's why they were so good, because they had a bunch of guys that were being paid less than they should. So he might just be looking for the paycheck that really evaded him previously in his career.
All right, Seattle Seahawks are not the only NFL team in the news. When we come back from this break, we'll talk about some of the coaching changes around the league, how it might affect the New Orleans Saints, and some of the other news. There's news all over the league, as usual,
Steve to hold
at the end of the season. And we'll talk about some of these other teams and what's going on in their camps as we come back on Dunc and Holder. You're listening to Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We'll be right back.
Your forecast on Sports 1280.
Blame it on the boogie.
All right, so you got Josh in Sacramento and Steve in New Orleans.
State Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. After another frigid start, temperatures will only climb into the mid to upper 30s this afternoon. So bundle up. It will feel even colder because of that breeze. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds today with virtually no chance for rain. But tonight, between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m., 1 or 2 snow flurries could fall across the area. That's because we'll be so cold once again. Temperatures will be in the hard freeze territory for both sides of the lake. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Have a great day.
I'm Tony Goldwyn. 20 years ago, when my mom had lung cancer, she didn't have many choices. But today, you do. If you've been diagnosed with lung cancer, please visit standuptocancer.org/lungcancer to learn more.
If you need a payday loan fast, try lendup.com. Apply in minutes on your phone or computer, and you could have cash in your account fast. Lendup.com, the better payday loan. Lendup.com, subject to availability in your state. Lendup is a licensed credit services organization, not a direct lender, in Ohio and Texas.
Just recently,
Wizard World Comic Con, January 5th through 7th at the Ernest N. Morial Convention Center. Meet your favorite stars, including Marvel Comics Stan Lee, David Tennant from Doctor Who, and more. Get your half-off tickets for Friday, Saturday, or Sunday at foxsportsam1280.com. Keyword deals.
As a small business owner, you make every dollar count. So what could you do with $10? Go to Vistaprint.com today and you'll get 500 high-quality custom business cards for only $9.99. That's less than 2 cents per card. And at Vistaprint, your satisfaction is absolutely guaranteed. So never been easier to turn 500 strangers into connections. Just visit Vistaprint.com and use promo code 2929 at checkout. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code 2929.
Where's your phone right now? It's probably nearby. Maybe it's in your pocket, charging by the wall, your kid's hands.
I'm using it.
If you can, get it, because
1 minute.
It's your very own Navy Federal Credit Union branch. If you need to deposit checks, check your balance or transactions, or transfer money between accounts, do it with the Navy Federal mobile app. Go try it out.
I'm not done.
Or try it out later. Download the Navy Federal mobile app today. Open to members of the Armed Forces, the DoD, veterans, and their families. Message and data rates may apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
Yeah, nothing changes America like a role model. I had one growing up. My name is John Hope Bryant. I wear a suit today because my dad wore a suit when I was growing up. But kids want to be rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers all too often because that's what they see in their neighborhood. My mission now is to give them something different to see, and you play a role in it. It's called America 2020 and Hope Business in a Box Academies. Go to OperationHope.org today and join the movement to make school cool once again.
All right, coming back
on the web at OperationHope.org.
All right, don't forget Josh and Steve.
Gotcha. Learn what our insiders know about your home teams. Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back. Duncan Holder flying without Larry today, who's tending to custodial burst pipes on the West Bank. Josh Katzenstein, my colleague at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, sitting in admirably at the last minute. And we are talking Saints, as usual, here on Duncan Holder, and we want to get your calls and get your thoughts on the Saints' upcoming playoff game against the Carolina Panthers and also their loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 260-1280 is the number to call to join in the program, and we want to go to the listener line right now. Josh in Sacramento, a regular caller of Duncan Holder. Josh, how you doing out in Sacktown? What's going on?
I'm doing pretty good, staying warm, that's for sure. The game Sunday was a pretty good game. Again, it was very odd. Saints defense coming up with 3 turnovers and then losing the game, very much like in Atlanta. We just need to fix that. It seems like when the pass rush is not there, we're getting the turnovers, but our offense is just sputtering and keeping our offense off the field. The other team's opposing defense is keeping our offense off the field. So I think that's something we need to address, very much like the third down issue. But my question is kind of 2 things. One, is there a receiver on the team that could initially be a substitute tight end, like Brandon Coleman or someone? I know it sounds crazy, but at this point, our tight end play is so poor. You know, there has to be something we can do. And the other 2 things I have kind of a feeling about is, you know, if Dennis Allen goes and he becomes a head coach somewhere, do you see the Saints trying to possibly take away like someone like Vic Fangio from the Bears, considering, you know, they have a head coach opening there. Do you see the Saints kind of taking a grab or a spike at Vic Fangio?
Josh, those are good questions, and I tell you, we were talking earlier before we went on the air about Dennis Allen's prospects as a head coach. I haven't heard his name leaked out there very often. Usually those things surface with the Adam Schefters of the world around the league, and I haven't heard Dennis Allen's name. I think he will be in the future another head coaching candidate, but so far I don't know where his prospects are.
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of Saints fans have been talking about the possibility of DA getting some interviews, but his name hadn't surfaced so far. And I mean, there's a lot of other names that are being floated out there as candidates to at least get interviews. And for whatever reason, Dennis Allen is not. But I think the idea of bringing Vic Fangio in is definitely a good one, Josh. But ultimately, I think it seems like the Bears are really hoping to keep him. Obviously, we'll see what head coach they hire. But, I mean, based on what Chicago's defense, the way they improved last year, I would be surprised, if their new coach wouldn't want to keep him.
One other question, one crazy off-the-wall question. So I'm kind of talking about this with some friends of mine. So say, we run the table. We win the Super Bowl. So here's my question. Sounds crazy, but do we push Drew Brees out in this situation? Say, hey, retire, or you can go play for a team like Denver or another team that has it all except for a QB and try to win one more and go after Kirk Cousins, make a push to get younger? Because, I mean, essentially, all the time discriminates against no one. Even Tom Brady, he's going to have to hang it up here in, another couple of years. Or do you just hang on to Drew as long as you can and then possibly take your chances with, like, a free agent or a rookie quarterback that's untrusted or unproven and try to build upon that?
Good question, Josh. Thanks for the call, and we will get to that crazy notion of pushing out Drew Brees. I would say this. I understand where you're coming from, and I totally get it. But if the Saints win another Super Bowl with Drew Brees and the front office tries to push him out, as well received as he is, as popular as he is, on the wake of a Super Bowl, I think there would be potentially pitchforks and torches and people lined up with a lynch mob outside of Airline Drive if they try to get rid of Drew Brees, because he is by far the most popular player in the history of the franchise. And if they win another Super Bowl, the crescendo and groundswell of support for number 9 is going to be at an all-time high. And I could never see them doing that with the timing. But I understand what you're thinking. That is, you got time now to kind of build. You got a honeymoon period. But also knowing Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis, how they think, these guys don't think about rebuilding. Sean Payton wants to win every game right now. He's not into the let's rebuild now that we just won another Super Bowl. He's going to want to win again, and he knows his best shot would be Drew Brees. And I frankly think Drew Brees is better than Kirk Cousins right now, even though I know he's a little bit younger. I'm not a big believer in Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, same. I appreciate the hypothetical from Josh, but I'm just going to say a big fat no on that one because, 1 year of Drew Brees, you're probably going to have a better chance of winning the Super Bowl than 6 years with Kirk Cousins. I think while Cousins has been productive and he's been good and he's been in a perfect situation to maximize his earnings with his contract in Washington, I just don't think he's that good. I think he's largely a product of Jay Gruden, who probably doesn't get enough credit as an offensive mind because Jay Gruden had, if you remember, Andy Dalton playing really well for a few years in Cincinnati. So I think Kirk Cousins, wherever he goes next, I'm curious to see if he can be as good as he's been past couple years with Washington. But no, I don't think, the Saints are in any rush to get rid of Drew Brees. We'll see what happens, with his extension possibility this offseason. It could be really telling if he's on a 1-year deal versus a multi-year contract. And then from there, look, eventually you have to go young at the position. You're going to have to draft somebody. Maybe Taysom Hill takes over, but I think the most likely scenario is that the Saints, whenever Brees is done, bring in a rookie and hope that he's really good. And frankly, it can happen. Look how good Deshaun Watson was coming in. I mean, there's no guarantee that your rookie is going to fall flat on his face.
Hard to hit on those guys, though.
It's
Look
hard, but it happens.
Cleveland Browns and some of these franchises.
Well, that's just because the Browns don't take the good ones. They pass on the good ones. That's
Houston
the problem.
struggled for a long time to find that guy until they hit on Deshaun Watson. But I would say this. As much consternation as there is about Drew Brees, and we hear a lot of whispers about his arm strength and all these things, the guy finished second in the league with a 103.9 passer rating. He threw for 4,300 yards, a 23-8 touchdown to interception ratio. And I believe I've seen this stat. I got to verify it. You might know. I think they led the league in 20-yard completions again. And they've always been ranked around the tops in the league. Now, they might not be airing the ball out down the field like people want, but they're throwing it short and getting the 20-yard gains. Who cares how they get it? But the explosive plays in the passing game have still been there, even though I think optically it doesn't seem that way because maybe some of these 20-yard gains are going to the running backs who are catching and running after the catch as opposed to them throwing it down the field to Brandon Cooks.
Well, look, people I also saw the same stat that they led the league in 20-yard passes. And look, every quarterback throws short passes. You can't just say Drew Brees doesn't have the arm anymore. Every quarterback is doing this. Tom Brady's throwing to Deion Lewis or James White or, all these short guys. That's just how the game is played.
Right. Nobody's throwing the ball deep every play.
Yeah, right. You take the play when it's there. I think people have just been spoiled because Drew Brees, when he does throw deep, so often, with this team, whether it was Devery Henderson or Robert Meacham, whoever you want to say, Brandon Cooks, just because he hit on so many of those. But, his deep passing percentage this year is pretty high. I don't have it on the top of my head. But, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league, bar none. And you just can't rush this guy out of here.
Right.
I know it's a fun thing to talk about.
You got to ride it.
I know there's a few fans out there that want him gone, to save some money. But this guy's your best chance to win.
Yeah, let's go real quick. I know we got to take another break here in a second. But let's go to Steve in New Orleans and get Steve's thoughts. What's going on, Steve? Happy New Year.
Hey, my buddy Jeff, this is Steve Watson calling you.
What's going on, Steve-O? How you doing, bud?
Great. Well, I am really good, and I'm a first-time caller, loyal listener. But I've got a couple members of the Light Rock Express here, and they want to say hello to you.
Oh, my gosh, my favorite band in the world. You guys are awesome.
I figured they'd be very excited. And I know that all your listeners out there haven't heard of the Great Light Rock Express, but they're also part of the Polish Pete polka band as well.
Well, I am a very, very loyal fan of Light Rock Express, as is Cooper Manning, as I'm sure you know, Steve. We are always there. So, look, we're excited. You guys are in town. What's the deal?
Well, they unfortunately, we had a get-together yesterday. They're not going to be able to make it tonight, but they're going to be back real soon. But they just wanted to call in and tell you you're doing a great job. And, our man Kate says stay low. Kate's telling me to wrap it up. But, Jeff, we just want to tell you you're the best, and we're having a great time. We look forward to hearing more from you.
I very much appreciate Steve, Kate, and Light Rock Express. Y'all made my day. Made my day with this call, and I will explain it to the listeners real quickly because I'm not sure they understand. Steve Watson is one of the co-owners of the Kingpin, one of my favorite watering holes in New Orleans. Also owns Midway Pizza, a great pizzeria on Ferret Street in Uptown. And he has a band that comes called the Light Rock Express, and they are off the charts great.
Can't remember the last time I've seen Jeff smile like this. He's so flattered. He's flush. It's crazy.
I am very, very happy. So thanks, Steve Watson, for checking in.
It's the little things, guys. You just keep it up. And thanks once again, first-time caller, loyal listener. Keep up the good work.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for the call. And with that note, we will take a break and come back and talk a little more Saints-Panthers right here on Dunc and Holder. You're listening to NOLA.com, Sports 1280, and the iHeartRadio app. We'll be right back. Steve Arini.
Hi, Eric Asher, host of Inside New Orleans. Been in the business now for 16 years, talking sports, politics, and news. Talking everything New Orleans, everything Louisiana. Looking forward to joining the crew, as we'll tell it like it is each and every day.
Eric Asher, weekdays, noon to 2, Sports 1280 New Orleans.
You get a strong opinion each and every day.
As a small business owner, you make every dollar count. So what could you do with $10? Go to Vistaprint.com today and you'll get 500 high-quality custom business cards for only $9.99. That's less than 2 cents per card. And at Vistaprint, your satisfaction is absolutely guaranteed. So it's never been easier to turn 500 strangers into connections. Just visit Vistaprint.com and use promo code 2929 at checkout. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code 2929.
So Dave, that's that band I think I was telling you about. All they play is light rock cover tunes.
Really?
Yeah, they're in a band
passed along friendship.
in Houston, like they're regular members of another band. These other different bands are musicians, but then they get together and they do these light rock cover tunes. They're hilarious.
Hours a night, I sit in my truck and I drive. Out of boredom, I'll stop and eat. If I'm not doing fast food, I guarantee there's a bag of chips open on my dashboard. That was all until Andro 400. I started out 4 months ago, and since taking Andro 400, I have dropped 45 pounds. I'm sleeping better. There's no cravings. I actually don't even think about food. My knee pain went away. I've had some lower back issues, and I've noticed that went away, and I can only contribute that to Andro 400. One thing that Andro 400 said on the radio ad is it attacks belly fat. Well, let me tell you, it did. The second month is where I saw a drastic change in the size of my stomach. I've lost 6 inches. This product really does work.
So guys, if you'd like to experience similar results, then get Andro 400. The safe, natural, and inexpensive way to boost your testosterone. Go to Andro400.com or call 888-400-0435. 888-400-0435.
Where's your phone right now? It's probably nearby. Maybe it's in your pocket, charging by the wall, your kid's hands.
I'm using it.
If you can, get it, because it's more than a phone. It's your very own Navy Federal Credit Union branch. If you need to deposit checks, check your balance or transactions, or transfer money between accounts, do it with the Navy Federal mobile app. Go try it out.
28-3
or try it out later.
So we had him call
Download the
in
Navy Federal
explain
mobile app today. Open to members of the Armed Forces, the DoD, veterans, and their families. Message and data rates may apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
Did you know that creating a realistic budget is one of the first steps out of the foreclosure process? I'm John Hope Bryant, the founder and CEO of Operation Hope. Let one of our HUD-certified counselors walk you through the process of helping you save your home. For 20 years, and 2 million customers and clients, we've helped people help themselves. Go to our Mortgage Hope Crisis Hotline, online at OperationHope.org, or call one of our counselors at 888-388-HOPE. That's 888-388-4673.
You saying his name remind? I was looking up guys that won the rushing title.
Dunc and Holder now.
One of them.
Eric Asher
Tuffy
next at noon
Lehmans.
on Sports
Great
1280 New Orleans.
Tuffy Lehmans.
Man, I'm so excited that Steve Watson called in. It's made my day. Made my new year that Light Rock Express is listening to Dunc and Holder.
Jeff is like a child on Christmas over here.
These guys are awesome. Let me get a quick aside and we'll get back to Saints talk. But Light Rock plays only Light Rock cover tunes. The Light Rock Express, these guys are from Houston, and they are awesome. They not only are their songs incredible, their playlist, but they're terrific musicians. And Cooper Manning and I bond over the Light Rock Express. And every time they play, which isn't very often, by the way, when they play at the Kingpin, the place is packed. Everybody goes. You've heard of every one of their songs that they play, but it's music you don't hear anymore. Maybe for a reason, some might say.
I would say that.
You don't hear it very often, but you know every word, all the songs they play, everybody's singing. It's just a great uptown, it's just a great New Orleans experience. It's one of those great nights whenever they play at the Kingpin. So I'm very honored that they called in. That's it. I'm done with my Light Rock Express fandom. I want to get back to Saints talk, but I want to get your thoughts because you just made a point about the Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think everybody in New Orleans is excited that Alvin Kamara might win the award. He'd be the first Saints Offensive Rookie of the Year since I think it was, Reuben Mays back in the mid-'90s. But I don't think it's a lock. I think it's a two-man race between him and Kareem Hunt, who won the rushing title as a rookie for the Kansas City Chiefs.
It's far from a lock, and I think Saints fans need to be prepared for the possibility that Alvin Kamara won't win Rookie of the Year. He certainly deserves it, but it's out of his control. I mean, when Kareem Hunt wins the rushing title, that makes a bigger statement than really anything, I would think, to the voters around the country. And look, as great as Kamara has been, Kareem Hunt had 1,782 yards from scrimmage compared to Kamara's 1,554. Now, you could say that Kamara has had some bigger games. He's been more efficient. He averaged more yards per carry and more yards per reception. He had a couple more touchdowns, I believe. But I just did some quick research here, and I could only find, since they've been handing out the Rookie of the Year award, I could only find 3 guys that won the rushing title as a rookie, and they were all Rookie of the Year. You have to go
who are they?
Zeke last year, Ezekiel Elliott. And then you go back to Eric Dickerson, 1983.
Yes, I think he was a pretty good player.
Yeah, pretty good. Rookie of the Year. And before that, you have to go all the way back, I believe, to Jim Brown in 1957. So,
No, because George Rogers won it, right?
Did he win the rushing title as a rookie?
Yes, pretty
and
sure.
He was Rookie of the Year?
Pretty sure in 1981.
All right. Well, like I said, quick research. I might be wrong. Either way, it's if you win the rushing title as a rookie, there's a pretty good chance you're going to win Rookie of the Year. So Kamara just has to hope that, the manner in which he got his yards was more impressive to the voters than the overall numbers for Hunt.
Okay, we had a caller a little while ago. I can't remember who it was, so forgive me, that brought up Dennis Allen's coaching prospects. I think it was Josh in Sacramento. There are 7 openings in the NFL right now. Well, 6 and potentially 7. We don't know what's going to happen with Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati, but right now Bruce Arians is out in Arizona. He's retiring. John Fox fired in Chicago. Chuck Pagano fired in Indianapolis. Jim Caldwell axed in Detroit. Did that surprise you, by the way? You covered the Lions for all those years. Did it surprise you Caldwell got canned?
Not really. Young GM going into his 3rd year. I think, he just wants to get a fresh face in there and a coach that he knows a little bit better.
Ben McAdoo out in New York. That's a big-time job there. The New York Giants trying to rebuild, and we're not sure what's going to happen with Eli Manning, so I think the new coach will have a big say there. And Jack Del Rio fired in Oakland. The big rumor there is that John Gruden's going to come back into coaching and lead the Oakland Raiders. I tell you, one of the big stories, and Peter King touched on this in his Monday Morning Quarterback column, was the fact that the Buffalo Bills made the playoffs. It was an amazing story. I mean, they kind of backed in a little bit. They needed some other teams to lose, and it happened for them. And they end a 17-year playoff drought. It was the longest, I think, in professional sports, if I remember correctly. And they had to get some help from the Cincinnati Bengals to beat the Baltimore Ravens. And if you haven't seen that video that the Buffalo Bills put up on social media, Google it, find it on YouTube, of the Bills watching the Ravens-Bengals game in their locker room and celebrating as they know that they're going to the playoffs. And I think they're going to be a dangerous team strictly because, look, man, they kind of have a totally second life here. They're playing with house money. They probably feel like they snuck in the playoffs, and those teams are always dangerous.
Definitely, and it's crazy to think that the Bills almost missed the playoffs because their stupid coach benched Tyrod Taylor for a game. What a dumb decision.
Yeah.
Look, they might not have won in San Diego, but they would have had a much better chance if Tyrod Taylor was out there instead of Nathan Peterman. But real quick, when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. Jeff was right. George Rogers, 1981. Also Earl Campbell, 1978. Both those guys won the rushing title as rookies and were the Rookie of the Year. So, like I said, Kareem Hunt has a great chance to win it. I know that will upset lots of Saints fans because Alvin Kamara is very deserving. But, yeah, back to the playoffs real quick. This might be an ugly weekend of games. I mean, just based on these lines, Vegas always knows more than the rest of us. So, we'll see if anyone can, manage an upset. But, yeah, I think the Bills might be the best chance. However, we'll see, if LaShawn McCoy is able to play. That'll be a big factor.
Yeah, and I tell you, you talked about Kamara's chances for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think Marshawn Lattimore is a lock for the Defensive Rookie of the Year. The guy makes the Pro Bowl in his first season and was hands down the best defensive rookie in the league. And for the first time, the Saints, the first time in a long time, the Saints have a shutdown corner. He ended a drought that went all the way back to mid-'80s, I believe it was, when Eric Allen last went as a cornerback for a Pro Bowl corner for the New Orleans Saints. They just haven't had that position.
Right, 1 minute.
They finally were able to address that. And look, one way or the other, whether Kamara wins it or not, great draft class for the Saints. And probably, I'd say, even a bigger impact out of this class than the 2006 class had. But we'll see if these guys pan out longevity-wise over that group.
Yeah, I think Ryan Ramczyk needs a lot of love. And people are comparing this draft class to 2006. if Ryan Ramczyk can lock down right tackle for years to come, I think, this class might end up being better.
All right, that's it for Dunc and Holder today. Josh, thanks for sitting in. We appreciate you pinch hitting for Larry Holder. Larry will be back with us tomorrow. I assume he will be. I assume he got his pipes fixed over on the West Bank. And Dunc and Holder will be back the rest of the week as we look forward to the Saints' big playoff game against the Carolina Panthers in the Superdome on Sunday. You're listening to Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We are Dunc and Holder. Back tomorrow.
When they know that I'm a star, so I got them over to the other side of the cantina.
Sorry for getting
I'm
that
Chris
wrong.
Walls, and I'm a truck driver.
Thanks, bud.
All right, guys. Talk tomorrow.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Thanks for keeping it funky, too.
Yeah.
Doing fast food, I guarantee there's a bag of chips open on my dashboard. That was all until Andro 400. I started out 4 months ago, and since taking Andro 400, I have dropped 45 pounds. I'm sleeping better. There's no cravings. I actually don't even think about food. My knee pain went away. I've had some lower back issues, and I've noticed that went away, and I can only contribute that to Andro 400. One thing that Andro 400 said on the radio ad is it attacks belly fat. Well, let me tell you, it did. The second month is where I saw a drastic change in the size of my stomach. I've lost 6 inches. This product really does work.
So guys, if you'd like to experience similar results, then get Andro 400, the safe,